Hello again everyone, I hope you are all doing really well. So for us holders of Workhorse stock, ticker symbol WKHS, we have seen a continued decline in price action last week as it continued to move down from its recent high mark of around $18. So for anyone who has been following my updates on this stock, they know that I am bullish on Workhorse, and even despite this recent dip in price, I will state now that I still am. I've been accruing Workhorse stock since August last year through buying and selling and holding onto part of the residual profit in stock sales. I've seen the highs from the EV bubble from earlier in the year to the drop-offs that came with the announcement of Workhorse missing out on the US Postal Service post-truck deal. Throughout this period, I've regularly traded the stock and have slowly added to my position because I have continued to believe the company has a promising future ahead of it. So for me and my approach to accruing the stock, it has always been a good time to buy. However, if you also think Workhorse is a stock you want to add to your portfolio for the long term, whether or not it is now a good time to buy the stock, then this is a question this video will be seeking to answer. To answer this, I will be doing a bit of a technical analysis based on recent movements in the stock that I will further inform with some expert analyst data that has been out in the media recently. I will also take a look at what has been going on with the shorts data with the stock and comment on how that may impact the stock going forward. Like always, this information is not intended as investing advice, just my take on what is currently happening with this stock. Alright guys, let's get on that electric pony and get into it. So to start with, we're looking at a daily chart that goes back to April. We can see that there has been a recent low point of about $7.70 in mid-May, which is indicated by the red line I have placed on the chart. And there is a green line along the top, which is representing the recent high point of just above $18. These extremes were achieved right after the start and in the middle of the boom in retail interest in the stock last month on the back of a potential short squeeze, which at least temporarily seemed to squeeze out a few short sellers. However, based on the downward trajectory the stock has been going on since the last attempt to breach the upper point of resistance, it's fair to say the short sellers have been able to recapture some ground. I've placed two yellow lines representing a potential channel that I think the stock could trade between in the near future, based on an upper level of resistance prior to the mini short squeeze and a more recent level of upper resistance that the stock has been trading around. So just purely based on looking at where the stock has been recently, I think we may potentially see a near-term trading range between $9.50 and $13.50. However, if the lower yellow line is breached, particularly in the current downward trajectory of the stock, we could potentially see a fall away back down to the $7.70 mark. At this point, I want to bring in some data from an article out of Investor Observer that was published on Friday that has quite a bullish sentiment. They have a consensus from their panel of analysts which they consult that Workhorse is currently a buy and have a $12.50 price target. This buy rating has likely come from the recent declines in prices and a reflection on the true state of the company's worth given where it is in its development. A few weeks ago, in the height of the short squeeze attempt, most analysts wanted to stay away from Workhorse because they knew its price was probably too hot and likely to come down, as we have been seeing in the last week or so. I've now placed the $12.50 price mark from the average analyst target price by Investor Observer analysts. It is sitting just below my upper resistance level. Although saying this, that upper limit of mine is based on trying to gauge where I think the stock price could go to in terms of as a high mark in a normal trading range at this stage. Anyway, that $12.50 mark reflects that there is currently a bit of value at the current share price of $11.17. Looking at that $12.50 price mark a little closer in relation to the lower band, there is still some potential room for the price to drop further, which we may see on Monday's trade. However, I think the momentum down may be coming to a point of reversal soon. It is worth noting that during Friday's trade, the stock did indeed try to edge up at the market open. However, it generally ended up dropping along with almost everything in what was actually a down day for the broad market. So my feeling is currently that we may see a little bit of a reversal of the current downward trend soon, perhaps even before the lower band is touched. Looking at some other data very quickly from my brokerage application, IG Markets, their 7 brokers which they consult all have a hold or buy signal for the stock, which is a positive reflection on the stock currently. Also, while it's not a large sample size, 97% of owners of the stock are presently long on the IG platform. Moving on to some general sentiment, there was another positive piece based on Workhorse on Friday released by InvestorPlace. It was a reasonably bullish article from them that addressed the current state of the company in a fairly realistic light. So looking at this first paragraph here, the company needs time to build stronger fundamentals. Workhorse has a niche market, so expectations may have temporarily exceeded reality. Not all EV stocks can be Tesla. That was a unique circumstance, and there's only one Elon Musk. They also took a bit of a swipe at investors such as myself. At least Workhorse actually currently has a profit and loss statement. They are growing sales but are still comparatively tiny. There could be problems from the love that investors have for Workhorse stock. Its fans are too brave and with great conviction. Under normal circumstances, I would say this would be supportive of WKHS stock, but in this case, it could be detrimental to the owners. The combination of indices altitude and investor stubbornness is cause for concern. The risk of suffering big losses is high in case of a crash. This probably does resonate with me a little bit, as I am bullish on the Workhorse going into the future. However, it is contradictory by the writers in a sense. Investors who are willing to hold their position for the long term are good for the company, as they help instill a sense of stability in the share price. Granted, it is risky to buy the stock if there were to be another short squeeze attempt at its peak, but if people are planning to hold for the long term, then it is a good thing for the company and the stock, as it brings about a sense of stability. So I think the author of this article may have forgotten about that. Now, this is an extract from an article from the same source, InvestorPlace, that was released just 2 days prior, which was not as positive about Workhorse. This was part of a greater article titled 7 Stocks to Avoid. Interestingly, Lordstown Motors, whom Workhorse owns 10%, also made the list. InvestorPlace also released a number of negative articles about Workhorse in the days leading up to Friday. I get that they have different people contributing the articles to their site, but this is really a sort of bipolar source of information around Workhorse stock at the moment. Although in saying that, it is always healthy to get a balance of perspective on the stock and not just seek out sources that confirm my convictions. One of the points that was raised in that article about staying away from Workhorse stock was about the legal challenge, which they think is ill-informed. I've spoken about the legal challenge previously. It is hard to see the deal being reversed in reality. However, I would never rule that out. The chance of some sort of compensation coming Workhorse's way, if what they are alleging is indeed true, is quite possible. Also, it is worth noting that many House Democrats, even before Workhorse launched the legal challenge, had been gathering numbers to challenge the decision to not go with an all-electric US Postal Service fleet as was being proposed by Workhorse, which goes back into that whole political side of the contract awarding that we spoke about earlier on this channel. So with enough political momentum, and given the nature of challenges that can come with government contracts, Workhorse may well stand to gain something from their challenge of the US Postal Service contract after all. We just have to wait and see. Speaking of legal action, and not necessarily in a positive way, it's hard to go past what is happening with Lordstown Motors, aka Ride, when discussing Workhorse, since Workhorse owns a 10% stake due to their licensing of technology to the upstart company. We've covered the issues around their pre-sales, which led to the resignation of both their CEO and CFO previously. However, on Friday, we did see the company publicly acknowledge the federal investigation pertaining to these pre-sale issues. I think the negative price action of this investigation has already been priced in, as it was publicized by two significant sources over 2 weeks ago. I think CNBC and the Wall Street Journal. Lordstown are bringing a unique offering to the EV world at this stage. However, they are bogged down in financial and legal problems at the moment. Even though Workhorse owns 10% of the company, this is not materially that important to me, at least anyway, as they acquired the 10% through licensing the knowledge and IP that they had developed. So it is not a strong financial risk for Workhorse, as they did not pay for their stake in Lordstown Motors. On the contrary, the stake in Lordstown Motors pretty much only presents potential upside provided they hold the asset and keep it as part of their balance sheet. And Lordstown Motors can turn around the negative spell that they have been going through over the last 3 to 4 months. A big part of this is going to be through ensuring that they do indeed start rolling out vehicles as planned in September. However, there are still ongoing funding issues around the company that need to be resolved. If you have been following Workhorse for the last 2 months, you cannot talk about the stock without addressing the current short scenario. Short trading has declined in volume through the last trading week, which to me symbolizes a number of short sellers leaving their positions as the price has come down. However, consulting the list of most shorted stocks, Workhorse is still 7th on the list, at around 37% of the current float being shorted. It's worth noting that It was second on this same list at the start of last week and has actually sat in first place on a number of occasions. The stock is still a prime candidate for a bit of a short squeeze. However, given the relatively low short borrow fee of 4.05%, short sellers have the capability to hold out their positions for a while if any such action was to take place. So the stock will need to see a sustained push to higher levels if there were to be any short squeeze action. Again, I think the slowing in short interest is a sign that the stock has approached a more realistic level for what the company is currently worth. Going forward, shareholders will want to be keeping an eye on what is happening with Lordstown Motors, as this has a significant impact on the Workhorse balance sheet. Given their current legal issues, it is a space worth watching. However, I think it is worth reiterating that Workhorse's 10% stake in the company came at no financial cost to them, so the success or failure of Lordstown is not a financial cost to Workhorse, although one could argue it is a play by Workhorse to recoup some of the research and development costs that have gone into creating their market-leading EV technology. Anyway, monitoring Lordstown is of course to be done in combination with watching what is happening with Workhorse as a company. They are scheduled to be delivering an increased number of vehicles in the second half of this year, which is surely good news. Regarding the legal challenge, I'm not banking on anything coming out of it. However, Workhorse only stands to gain from a somewhat favourable outcome, whether it be improved reputation, compensation, or absolute best case scenario, a reversal of the US Postal Service contract. The legal challenge demonstrates a degree of confidence from Workhorse management. However, there is a risk that they pursue it to the point where it can become financially detrimental, which let's hope is not what they do. Anyway guys, that's about all I'm going to talk about here. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I encourage you to leave a like on it. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to the channel. I try to put out a stock related video most days. I've really appreciated the support I've gathered so far on this channel. Until next time guys, take care, have a good one. See ya.